Good afternoon, friends. So, my name is Marcella David, and I'm Senior Vice President and Provost here at Columbia College Chicago. And for anyone who is new to Columbia College Chicago, let me say welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm holding in my hands the Columbia College Chicago little gift that we're giving out right now in admissions, and it says 135 years. And so if you've missed the banners in the street, this is in fact the 135th anniversary of Columbia College Chicago, a little institution that was started by two women many years ago and has blossomed into the place that so many of us like to know as our creative home. We are a liberal arts college with a creative arts focus. Our mission and vision is to enable our students to author the culture of their times. And what we try to do is give them the technical preparation, the career preparation, the opportunity to study history and culture, to think about communication so that they can tell the stories through whatever art form calls to them that will help shape the world in moving forward. And obviously, at this moment in time, we really need to be thinking about the stories that we're telling, which is really why I'm so proud and privileged that we are partnering today with One Humanity. You'll hear more about One Humanity, but it is an opportunity for us to have conversations, I think, that are incredibly important for the time. My personal area of scholarship is international law. And I feel as if we are sliding into that period that we were in before, between the ending of the League of Nations and the birth of the United Nations, where there was a lot of self-interest, there was less of a respect for our nations, less of a sense of a common humanity. It was not a great period, and it led to the destruction of so many lives through conflict. And the United Nations creation was this moment where I think we all thought, okay, we're going to try something new. And that experiment, which had its flaws, the gaps between the human rights goals and the goals around self-determination and the realities of international power politics were certainly very significant gaps that created many problems. But there was a guiding principle that everyone seemed to believe in, which I think is very much towards this notion of one humanity. And we seem to have lost that notion. And so these kinds of conversations that we're going to hear tonight, I think, are going to be incredibly important for us to restart that pathway to the notion of collaboration and cooperation across the globe if we're going to get there again. So for that reason, I'm really delighted to be hosting this event. And I'm going to stop talking myself so we can get right to it and introduce my new friend, someone I met who is an activist in the community, who has actually not only engaged in partnership through the Calipria organization with Columbia College for a number of years, but also has forged connections or helped us to forge connections and introduced me personally to other community organizations that I was not aware of, not the least of which is this new organization, One Humanity. So without any further ado, please welcome Mirdu Shekhar, who is going to share some words and thoughts.
I would like to call you Provost David, but it doesn't feel right. Thank you so much for your kind welcome. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to hold We Are One Humanity's first public event right here in Columbia College in the heart of Chicago. Before I introduce our organization and our speakers, I would like to do a little personal reflection on the important role that Columbia College Chicago plays in Chicago. It is integral to our community. Columbia College is a very diverse institution with a very diverse student body and faculty. in a very diverse city and community, the South Side. As a resident of Chicago's South Side for over 50 years, we raised our children and grandchildren in this South Side community. Driving or walking by the college's sprawling urban campus, we often take the presence for granted. The unique Wabash Corridor is a living urban campus stretching between Van Buren and Roosevelt, where new murals are constantly being added, and as a result, public space is reclaimed and transformed into immersive museums of murals by the citizens of Chicago for the citizens of Chicago. Columbia College is the only institution of higher education in Chicago dedicated to the performing arts. Music, dance, theater, and even the performing visual arts when you go out and see the murals. The institution is critical to our cultural and intellectual life. It reflects the diversity of our sensibilities, not just of our personas. The performing arts and the disciplines that support them emphasize our own humanity. Columbia is very critical for this time, for the world. As a city has always been recognized for the vibrant cultural scene, Columbia College Chicago plays a vital role in sustaining the social and economic fabric and health of the city. Let us support it and let us celebrate it. Now I go on to tell you a little bit about We Are One Humanity. It was founded as a digital platform by none other than Rajmohan Gandhi, who is here today, with a vision that this platform be available for all voices. It's a platform free of hate, fiercely rejecting divisions of any kind, at a time when we are being divided in ever so many ways. By age, by gender, by identity, by race, class, and privilege. We reject the supremacy of some groups and downgrading of others. We wish to see each other as an imagined God would see us, with love and compassion. Mahatma Gandhi was known to have said, Swaraj, meaning self-rule, must represent not just national independence, but also individual political, economic, and spiritual freedom with a commitment to social service. That is slowly missing in our lives. Our digital platform and in-person events are specially curated to foster conversations free of partisanship, political party affiliations, and all the divisions that put us in these information silos that technology and greed have created specifically for isolating and controlling us. These digital platforms exacerbate every conceivable division that man can imagine. I am honored to be a founding director of We Are One Humanity. In addition to Rajmohan Gandhi and Margaret Smith, who you'll hear from, joining us here at this first public event are directors Edward Peters, a dual citizen of Sweden and the UK, and Charles Aquilina, a native of Malta who now lives in the US. We are also supported by our spouses, Philip Tyndale Bisco, Usha Gandhi, and my own dear husband, Chandra. This is an opportunity for us to meet you all and to start conversations and share a meal together. This morning, we met Reverend Otis Moss III, and he said, you know, sharing a meal and sharing stories brings us all together. And I think that's what we're going to try to do. Now I would like to say a little bit about Rajmohan Gandhi. We are very lucky to have him here today. He's the grandson of two great leaders, Mahatma Gandhi and C. Rajagopalachari, both active in India's movement for freedom from colonialism. During his long career as a journalist, politician, historian, research scholar, biographer, Rajmohan Gandhi has witnessed and led many pivotal social and political movements for change. He has spent the last decades at our own University of Illinois in Urbana, studying the leaders of the American Civil Rights Movement. He introduced me to the work of James Lawson, which I really highly recommend all of you consider studying. He has published over 24 books. Particularly insightful are those on his two grandfathers. The other one that I would recommend is Indian History as a Cycle of Revenge and Reconciliation. And when I was looking at what's happening in American history, I think we are into cycles of revenge and reconciliation. The last book that I would recommend is The Story of Modern South India. Many histories of India are written with a focus on the North, and I think it's worthwhile to study the South. He's currently writing the biography of civil rights leader James Lawson. Rajmohan Gandhi started the weekly journal Himmat. Himmat is the Sanskrit word for courage. So, in 1964, in 2017, it was launched as an online journal, and now it's a new website titled We Are One Humanity. He continues to write regularly and leads the work of this new organization. Margaret Eastman Smith has devoted her life to exploring the nexus between personal growth and social change. Her doctoral research at the Fletcher School of Tufts University focused on ways of dissemination of historical ideas, how they can be used to mitigate conflict. Margaret taught for 18 years in the International Peace and Conflict Resolution Program at American University in Washington, D.C. It is a program designed to give students a deeper understanding of the dynamics of politicization societies and ways to address them. While at the American University, her specialization included nationalist and ethnic conflicts, uses of memory in politics, and post-conflict reconstruction in deeply divided societies. Before becoming an academic, she worked with the international programs of Initiatives of Change, spending 4 years in Papua New Guinea and a further 4 years in Richmond, Virginia, working on projects to improve community relations. Margaret has known Rajmohan Ji since the 1960s and should be able to have an interesting conversation with him. The format of today's interview of him is the first 30 to 40 minutes will be between Margaret and Rajmohan Ji talking about issues that are relevant. And then Margaret will introduce Faisal Lalani, who's our executive editor, and he will take your questions. After that, we will break for dinner. Thank you.
We at We Are One Humanity are taking a stand for compassion, for truth, for respect for all human beings, freedom of speech, justice and equality before the law, sharing in the spirit of abundance, and joining forces to address humanity's very great challenges right now. We want to assure all of you that the editorial team of We Are One Humanity has not brought you here today because we think we have a secret solution to reveal. Rather, we have gathered today to share in the reality of this moment and to open ourselves to conversation with others. Rajmohan, you come from the family most associated with India's freedom struggle. You can remember the moment when India and Pakistan became independent in 1947, and you watched over your lifetime India develop as the world's largest democracy. But in recent years, you have seen a dismantling of democracy in your country. And now you are observing a dismantling of democracy in the US and in some other countries as well. So, Rajmohan, what, in your view, is at the root of the worldwide move we've been seeing away from democratic institutions and in favor, directly or indirectly, of authoritarianism.
Thank you, Margaret. But before I try to respond to your question, may I say how delighted I am to be with so many good people who have come for this conversation. And may I also thank the Provost for her very appropriate remarks, which I respect greatly, and Dr. Mridu Shekhar for her opening remarks. Now, yes, you can see that I'm reading from my notes, and you can guess that I knew the question ahead of time. I'm not concealing that. For most people in the world, we find the world is getting more complicated, life remains risky, living is tough, living is expensive, health, physical and mental, is a mounting challenge. Care is hard to get or unaffordable. So why do these things happen in our countries? People are easy prey. They're vulnerable to a simple or an easy explanation. And a simple explanation that may align with our prejudices. So one very obvious explanation is, in a country like the US, is it's the immigrants who have caused all the problems. Immigrants from Latin America have caused all the problems. Stop them from coming. Or it's the blacks. They shouldn't become so noticeable on all our campuses. It's also the Muslims. Keep them out of the US. In Europe, the popular explanation is that it's the immigrants from Africa, the immigrants from the Middle East. They're altering the culture we love. They're altering the landscape that we've been used to. In India, population almost 1.5 billion, not yet, but 1.4 billion. What's the simple explanation? It's above all the Muslims. After all, they've only been in India for about 1,200 years. They need to be controlled. And we're easy prey for simple remedies. Easy explanation and simple remedy. What is the simple remedy? Democracy takes such a long time, so tedious. Let's have a strong leader. So that is the attraction of authoritarianism. So this is my kind of simple understanding of why this is happening in many parts of the world today.
So I know some people here come from India or are very familiar with what's going on in India, but there are quite a few who are not. So it would be helpful for us to know how precisely democracy is being attacked in India, so that we can, maybe you can go on to compare some of the things that you see in the United States to what you're seeing in India.
Yes, thank you for giving me that chance. I'll just summarize what the situation is in India. For one thing, journalists and activists have been kept in prison now for a very long time, large numbers of them, kept in prison for years without trial, without opportunity for bail, and in many cases without any indictment. People have been kept for years in prison, journalists, others, activists, for years in prison without any charges being framed, without any trial being held. So this is one aspect of what is happening. Then opposition politicians, now India has a federal system, it has a central government, national parliament, it has 30 plus states, fairly similar to the US. We don't call it a federal system, we call India a union of states, but there's a very strong federal character to the Indian political system. And so there are elections all the time, either in this state or that state, or sometimes a national election. So very often what happens is that opposition politicians frequently on the eve of an election are charged and arrested on some alleged irregularity of one kind or another, very often just before an election time. And then what happens in many cases, they switch to the ruling party, and suddenly these charges are removed, they're exonerated. So there is a wonderful laundry machine in India where politicians get beautifully and instantly cleaned when they switch from one party to the other. And then I've mentioned the various state governments, and very often the states contribute to the finances of the country as a whole. There's taxes levied by the states, and out of the revenues that the states get, money is sent to the federal government. So the federal government has lots of funds, which then it distributes to the various state governments, and very often denying funds to state governments that are run by opposition parties is another aspect of what is happening today in India. And then there is the state and ideological control over schools and universities. Rewriting of books, rewriting of history books, rewriting of maps. So this continuous attack in the last 10, 12 years, which is, you might say, gaining in strength and spread on the education system, both at the school level and the universities. Rearranging the museums of India to impose a preferred view of how the past has developed. I can go on, but these are some instances of what has happened in recent years in India. But I will add this. While this depressing picture is sadly real, there are wonderful, courageous reporters within India and outside, people of Indian origin and people who are not necessarily of Indian origin, who are doing incredible work. I can give you some names also. There's a man called Dhruv, D-H-R-U-V, last name Rathi, R-A-T-H-E-E, who lives in Germany. And he's a young man, and he makes these YouTube documentaries, which are extremely capably and competently made, brilliantly made. I'm naming him. Then there's a stand-up comedian, a man called Kunal Kamra. And he produces some amazing pieces. I'm just giving you a couple of examples. And then there is this most amazing man called Ravish Kumar. He spells his name the way you spell in English the word ravish. But in India, if you read R-A-V-I-S-H, it's a person's name, it is Ravish Kumar. And he is in India. He used to be on a very prominent TV channel, which was taken over by supporters of the regime and the government. So he was forced to leave. On a YouTube channel, he now reaches millions and millions and millions of people, and he analyzes the situation. So he also performs very great service. So there is this good pushback also.
So you are describing things in India, excuse me, that are more extreme than anything we've seen yet in the United States, with the possible exception of the deportation of some people without any hearing at all. But we have not had people so far who've been imprisoned for speaking out for their beliefs. But we have some of the similar dynamics going on at a lower level here. So I don't know if you care to comment on the things that you find are matters of most concern to you in the United States right now.
Of course. After all, for a very long time, much of the world thinks of the US as a very young nation, which it is in some ways, although the people have been living here for thousands and thousands of years. But it's also true that as a democracy, the US is an old, old democracy. And what an incredibly great democracy the US has been for such a long time. And all of us, now the provost referred to how when the UN was formed, and then the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, where the US played such a tremendous part to create this universal Declaration of Human Rights. Freedom of belief, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of movement. No question asked about your origin. All this is so much of it the world owes to the United States. But then there is today, undoubtedly, I've already mentioned this facility, the ease with which people blame some groups of people for the problems in the United States. This makes our task of conversations among the different groups in the United States so fundamental. In every conceivable group of the United States, an ethnic group or a religious group, there are wonderful people, courageous people, believers in democracy. But the conversation between groups doesn't take place as often as it should. So we live in our own worlds. It's natural to do that. But conversations among the different groups of people don't take place, which is one reason, by the way, why We Are One Humanity has been started to give an encouragement to conversations among people in the world, not just in the United States, not just in India, but everywhere. But since we are in the United States, how about really a good boost to vigorous conversations, if possible, cordial conversations, but frank conversations among different groups? Yes, we have different histories, we have had different political aims, but how about understanding one another? When I was introduced, people spoke of the books I've written. Yes, I've written several books of history and biography and so forth. One thing I learned in the course of my research over a lifetime, a very, very obvious truth which is known to everybody, but we don't often realize it. All of us have opinions about other groups, but we don't have knowledge about other groups. We don't listen to them. We don't read their books. We don't look at history from their point of view. So if this can be multiplied, encouraged, obviously we will get somewhere. So these are some initial remarks.
Rajmohan, I am old enough to remember 1999, the year before the turning of the millennium, and one of our national magazines held a competition to decide who was the most significant personality of the 20th century. In other words, who best represented the trends and ideas and actions that animated the 20th century. And there were two finalists. There was Albert Einstein, and there was your grandfather, Mahatma Gandhi. Einstein represented the advances of science and technology. Gandhi represented the struggle for freedom of subjected peoples and the idea that powerless people have power if they can figure out how to use it. So I just wonder, since we have the privilege of having you here, if you could say yourself afresh, who was Gandhi and what is his historical significance?
Thank you, Margaret. So in my understanding, there are three things about Gandhi that are worth recognizing. One, of course, is this idea of nonviolent direct action. And Gandhi's word for it, which many Indians have used and which now many in the world also are aware of, it's a very simple short word called satyagraha, which means passionately clinging to the truth. But what means is that if there is a non-violent direct action, sometimes things can shift. And the civil rights movement here was, as everybody knows, everybody who studied the movement knows, intimately connected to Gandhi. And so the idea of non-violent direct action, this is one of Gandhi's legacies. The independence of India from European rule, from foreign rule, which then was followed by the independence of so many other countries, that also was an achievement, certainly not an achievement only of Gandhi, but he was the leader of the Indian independence movement. So the independence of India is another historical reality with which Gandhi is connected. And thirdly, the fact that for several decades after independence, India functioned not as a wonderful democracy, but certainly as a democracy, as an heartening democracy, an inspiring democracy. And there was a constitution which assured complete equality of before the law for everybody, no matter their religion, no matter their caste, no matter their economic condition. And this constitution, of course, was finally formulated a couple of years after Gandhi was assassinated, but very great part of it was directly connected to the values that Gandhi had instilled into the Indian freedom movement. So these three things, nonviolent direct action, Indian independence, and a constitution of equal rights are some things with which Gandhi is associated.
Thank you, thank you. I can't help but think about Saturday, April 5th, which, as many of us know, there are going to be rallies in all capital cities and many other cities of our country, led by Hands Off and Indivisible and so on. And these are peaceful demonstrations, and it's hard to think about it without thinking about Gandhi and King and all those who've gone before, who have led us in forms of civil protest. I'm thoughtful about what you say about Gandhi, because there was a way in which he not only was nonviolent, but I think you would agree that he felt that people needed to demonstrate in their own lives the values that they were fighting for. And so there was an idea about the integrity of each of our lives that stands behind the struggle. So I just wonder if you care to comment on the way, well, I guess, what makes group action valuable? Because many of us are feeling like we don't know how to make a difference right now. The judges can certainly make a difference or try to make a difference, but many of us have very little power right now. What is the power of the group?
So you also mentioned the protests that likely to take place. Is it?
It's on Saturday,
Saturday?
April 5th, yes.
Okay. So I have a thought on that. If the protests are marked by discipline, by confidence, by solidarity, by complete peace, by total conviction about democracy, by total conviction about equal rights for all, by nonviolence, and by goodwill towards everybody, these are, to be sure of this in city after city after city is not that easy, but let everyone who takes part, you mentioned what groups or individuals could do, if any are thinking of associating with protests, let us make sure that the protests are marked by discipline, confidence, solidarity, peace, total conviction, non-violence, goodwill towards every single person. Then there's something else I might say. which is probably connected also to Gandhi, but it's my view from this old man is also very old, so he's capable of speaking in his own name. The most essential thing I see, Margaret, is purely personal. That in my mind, I decide that I'm in favor of the individual's freedom of belief. I'm in favor of the individual's freedom of speech. I'm in favor of the individual's freedom of association, freedom of movement. I don't wish to compel anyone. I don't wish to be compelled by anyone. Incidentally, here I will also quote my grandfather. One of his remarks, "The only tyrant before whom I will bend the knee, my knee, the only tyrant before whom I will bend the knee is the still small voice within." That the human being, every human being, is entitled to respect to her or his autonomy. That no one is superior or inferior because of what their blood is, because of who their parents are, because of their skin color, because of where they were born. Humanity is one, and human beings are equal in their innate dignity. When I remind myself of this truth of everyone's freedom, everyone's autonomy, of everyone's dignity, that reminder is a foundation for my personal morale, for my spirits, perhaps for my usefulness as a citizen in a democracy. Let's be sure of this foundation. Once I hold this belief and I nurse this belief and I feed this belief could spread to others around me without my ever having to say much or even say anything. My belief in equality and in freedom may annoy a dictator without my speaking a word, and if I wear a smile, the annoyance will be greater. So there are two words also I would like here to emphasize. The word local and the word circle. Local and circle. A neighborhood circle that is tight in warmth and friendship, a neighborhood circle tight in warmth and friendship, but open to anyone, is an inclusive circle. Authoritarianism dislikes inclusive circles. Its foundations are weakened by inclusive circles. So let's expand our circles, get to know fellow Americans. Diversity is not a word to be afraid of. It is something we should be proud of.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Raj, I wanted to ask you something that I may not have put this question down when we communicated last week, but let's talk a little more specifically about what you've put on the table by launching this We Are One Humanity endeavor. One thing I have sensed that you want to do is to put before all of us the fact that this is a global endeavor. This is not a United States endeavor or an India endeavor only. It's you want to capture something that it actually is about all of us everywhere. Could you talk about the value of taking that approach and also what the challenges are of doing that?
Yes, but as you yourself said at the outset, Margaret, that we don't claim that we're about to offer some wonderful solutions. No, not at all, not at all. These conversations are already taking place. We want to encourage them. We want to add an effort to this tremendous exercise that millions and millions of people all over the world are now conducting in various ways. But what is the specific contribution of We Are One Humanity? Well, there is this website. Already several people now read it, but I hope more and more will read it. But I hope more and more will form these tight local circles, which are as diverse as is possible, of conversation, getting to know one another. And We Are One Humanity will, as a website, and with our webinars. Hopefully there may be some podcasts. We have some wonderful young people who have recently joined us, and you will be seeing some of them. Faisal and Rand and Emma are here. But and you can see that although I'm trying very hard to become younger, I may not necessarily succeed in this. But we are very keen that more and more people, especially younger people, will join this. And please focus on the 4 words: we are one humanity. If we agree with this, then how can we say that X or Y or Z or A or B or C should not get the rights that I get? Whether it is in India, whether it is in the United States, whether it's in Iran, Pakistan. By the way, having mentioned Pakistan, let me say one more thing, if you'll allow, Margaret.
Yes.
And you mentioned India. One of the things most on my heart is the tragic lack of unity in a region that is known as South Asia, involving Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, India. People from all these parts are here in Chicago. They are here in many parts of the United States. Yes, everybody has relatives. Some people have assets back home. And when you have relatives and assets in countries that are not very democratic, then you are very careful, even if you're living in the United States. But I am very keen that we are one humanity, both as a website, as an organization that may sponsor webinars and other conversation podcasts, will involve the people of South Asian origin. And I know that people, even here just now, are from different parts of South Asia, that we will make this a real attempt. I mean, the idea that we who knew each other, we were talking with one another, we were traveling to other places, but all those contacts, all those relationships have ended in recent years. So the restoration of South Asia as a living, friendly, vibrant community that knows one another, that has a tremendous unity of culture, music, art. I'm very keen. I'm not limiting We Are One Humanity's relevance to South Asia, but I mentioned that because that is a very specific ambition, if you say, of mine when it comes to We Are One Humanity.
Thank you. Rajmohan, there's so many things we could talk about, and we probably should start inviting questions soon. But I would just like to say one more thing, that I would not want to leave this gathering without talking for a minute or two about courage. Because the Hindi word for courage is himmat, and that is the title you used for the very first journal you founded. And you used it again for the website that preceded We Are One Humanity. So the subject of himmat is very much on your mind, and it is clearly a word that has importance for you. Courage, we know, is not an emotion. It's an orientation towards life. It leads us towards risk-taking. And in that sense, it's essential to our growth as people. Many wonderful writers capture this, and I just want to point out that the Bishop of Washington, D.C., Marianne Buddy, has just brought out a book called How We Learn to Be Brave. How would you talk about the meaning of courage for you?
I think I will mention the fact, Ritu mentioned it in her talk. You know, we had a wonderful meeting with Reverend Otis Moss III today. Many of us connected with We Are One Humanity. And so he speaks of two essential things in life: love and justice. Love and justice. Love and justice. To my mind, we know that justice requires courage, but we also know that loving somebody you may not want to love, who belongs to another group that you have had problems with, that also takes courage. Love takes courage. The fight for justice takes courage. But without, if I am ready to see the suffering of people in front of me and not letting it cause me to play some part, I mean, I would hate to end my life with that realization that I could have done something, and I didn't do it. So, I don't see why, when Gandhi said that the only tyrant before whom I'm willing to bend my knee is the still small voice, with other tyrants I will not bend my knee. I don't see why that decision can't be made by each one of us. Yes, if my conscience, the still small voice, if my real examination, objective examination, I find this is unfair, this is wrong, of course I must say something. I don't want to end my life or even end my day feeling that I could have done some little thing. I could have at least harbored some sympathy, even if I couldn't openly express it. If it was too risky to express, at least I could harbor some sympathy. I think this essential, and it's wonderful, you know, humanity has this lovely two meanings. It means we're all one, but also humanity has this notion of compassion, some humane feeling for your. So, I mean, I don't have to emphasize these points, underline these points, raise my voice. These are obvious truths in your consciences, in your minds, that I want just to remind you of.
Thank you. Friends, you get the chance to ask questions. You have cards on your seat. And if you have a question and you've written it on the card, just wave it and somebody will come and pick it up. Good, we've got someone who's going to start us off there. And I want to introduce Faisal Lalani. He is the executive editor of We Are One Humanity. He's also got another job where he's the head of global partnerships at the Collective Intelligence Project. Faisal has traveled the world and has been involved in a lot of different things, and we're so delighted to be working together with him on We Are One Humanity. So Faisal, where is he? I'm looking around.
There he is.
Oh, here he is. He is going to be the moderator for the Q&A.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Rajmohan Ji, Margaret. Can we please give one more round of applause for this excellent conversation? It was very illuminating. So, as Margaret pointed out, I'm sure you all have many questions. I've collected a few already. Carrie will be walking around with a mic, and we'd love to hear you speak up as well. And I'd like to start with a question that I've been seeing not only on the live stream, but also comments that I've noticed a lot on the We Are One Humanity website. Rajmohan Ji, you pointed out, you made a joke earlier about not being able to get any younger. However, there's a foundational optimism to everything you said today. It's very sincere, it's very authentic, and I think it's extremely inspiring. A lot of people in younger generations, in my generation, they seem to be waving on that. And what I want to ask you is, what a lot of people want to ask you is, how do you keep that up? how do you extend that optimism to individuals and communities that feel politically disempowered or historically disencouraged?
But you know, thank you. I myself, every day, I mentioned these very brave journalists in India, these reporters. They feed my optimism, my courage, every other hour. I'm dependent on so many wonderful people. And for every well-known person, there are a few thousand unknown persons who are doing this all the time, who are assisting, caring for some person who is oppressed or threatened or targeted in country after country after country. So I would invite each one of you to let your own courage, your own compassion, your own humanity, your own desire to do something relevant and useful come out. It is there in you. You know it. You hear the voice all the time. Yes, you sometimes shut it down, and of course it is risky. So often it is risky. But it is already happening. So I'm not offering a tip for this, dear Faisal, but I know that it's there in all of you. It's there in every one of us.
Thank you very much. I'll ask one more, and then I'll open it up to the audience. So someone from the audience is wondering, can you speak about the secular constitution that Dr. Ambedkar authored for India, and if it has, and will it endure in the future?
Well, and now, is there anybody here who has not heard of Dr. Ambedkar? A few of you have not heard of, but you have heard of Gandhi. But let me tell you this. There are many more statues of Ambedkar in India today than of Gandhi. And there are many more amazing, wonderful institutions named after Ambedkar. Ambedkar is a remarkable figure in India's history. He came from the so-called untouchable caste. And this is one of the sad stories of India's history, that India could create something called, a whole section of humanity called the untouchables. And Ambedkar came from this group, and he became a courageous leader. And he and Gandhi often had clashes. But then they collaborated. And at Gandhi's suggestion, the other leaders of India, Nehru and Patel and the others, invited Ambedkar to draft the Indian Constitution. So this untouchable, condemned by India's history into seclusion, into darkness, into abasement, produces India's laws, the foundation of India's laws. Of course, along with many others, but the architect's role is played by Ambedkar. And that constitution, like the UN Declaration of Human Rights, instructs the Indian state to give equal rights to everybody, and instructs the Indian state to look after the needy, the oppressed. It is a wonderful constitution. And so Ambedkar's constitution is there. It has not yet been repudiated on paper. Sadly, it has been repudiated in action in recent years. But there are many people putting up a fight, a good fight. And so may that fight continue, and may that fight emerge victorious.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to that, so I have a few questions here that kind of touch upon the same thing. Both caste discrimination, which you just spoke about, and adversity and hate towards Muslims seem to persist in India, in South Asia, and in a lot of different countries. Why do you think that is?
We need, just as there are psychiatrists and psychologists who investigate human personalities, we need psychologists and psychiatrists who investigate historical attitudes and how they persist for a long time. I don't claim to be that kind of scientist who can explain why these prejudices have continued and they exist, but I recognize that they do exist. I have offered this early on, this explanation that it is a simple explanation. We blame our problems on some groups. And Muslims in India and Muslims in many parts of the world are being blamed for what is wrong in the world. And this is not going to help anybody. Of course, it's not the right explanation. We all know this. There are many countries in the world that have not many Muslims, and they are not free from problems. This is, you have spelled out, or whoever is, the question that you're reading from anyone, that person has spelled out the reality of our world today. So let us find our way of resisting this, but also of creating inclusive circles of Muslims, non-Muslims, Jews, Christians. Let us create wherever we are, Buddhists, inclusive circles that are absolutely committed to equal rights for all, for equal rights of all nationalities to exist. I mean, the idea that one nation called Palestine should just be eliminated, I mean, should the world accept that? Can the world accept that?
No.
So let's rouse the simplest feeling for truth and justice. As I mentioned, love and justice. So let's rouse this feeling, but let's also simultaneously also fight that if we dislike the action of some groups, let us not turn that dislike into any hatred of anybody, any individual or any group of people. I think that non-hatred has to be an essential part of every fight for justice.
Thank you. I want to turn the theme a little bit onto something that comes up a lot in many people's perspective here, on how that love and justice you just talked about persists in a digital age. So We Are One Humanity is, of course, a digital platform. All of our articles, our meetings, our webinars are all conducted online. But when you look at social media platforms, a lot of algorithms focus on engagement rather than consensus. Right now, we have a lot of focus on economies of attention, in which what can you say that can make you go viral? How do you see the role of technology in the type of activism and advocacy that you talked about today? What is the role of modern technology in protests nowadays?
Thank you for your questions are becoming easier by the minute. So I don't know about the role of technology, but I do hope that people will be far better than me, because I absolutely am no good at technology. I'm zero. I have never done Facebook, by the way. It was a miracle that I learned how to do emails, but I felt it was unfair of humanity to expect for me to learn new things every day. Don't come to me for technology. But I'll say this: inspired art can defeat the evil designs that are being pushed by technological means. Inspired art, inspired music, inspired cartoons. Mridu mentioned the wall paintings in Chicago. Music, art, poetry. Let us turn to these wonderful avenues to counter any design of division, so forth.
I really like this one. I think it's, yeah. So I'm going to read this verbatim instead of synthesizing. Aristotle and many others reminded us that we can expend our energy fighting the old or building the new. What is a way you see people currently building the new?
It will come. It's already coming through these people that I've mentioned, and there are counterparts everywhere. And it will come, it is happening, and people will record it, people will talk about it. So so no, these answers must come from you. Unfair. Your question should be directed here, please.
We would, of course, love to hear all of your perspectives. Just FYI, we will be having an open mixer in which all of us will get to connect, and we'd love to hear your perspectives, so stay tuned.
I think there's a way in which many people have compared what's going on now in the world to the 1930s, and Provost Davis did herself in the introduction. And when you think about the world in the 1930s, the way democracy, certainly in Germany, was being undermined, and also then in Japan and Italy, and how those countries banded together, but also there was protectionism, that tariffs went up. Many things we're seeing were going on then. I think there are many, many more people in the world right now who have a consciousness of core values that are really important. That we didn't really get into why is it democracy is so important in protecting human rights.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is a way in which those two things have to go together.
Absolutely.
That once you lose your democratic system, then you are the victims of the interests of groups, oligarchies, authoritarian regimes of one kind or another, and human rights disappear really fast. So in spite of the fact that democracy has a lot of problems, as Churchill said, it's the worst form of government except for all the others. So you know, we have to work at making democracy work better than it has, but we have many, many more people who understand human rights, who understand the nature of the struggle, who understand how to be advocates, who understand speaking truth to power, who understand kindness, who understand what it means to have a group gather together and have a dialogue. Many, many more people get that than they did before. And so we need to draw on all that. We need to be more assertive about the things we know. But that's why I want to be part of We Are One Humanity, because I know it's already there. We just need to give it a chance to speak louder.
Thank you, Margaret. I think to close out the Q&A, actually, we would like to hear a few perspectives from the audience. So, Carrie, would you like to?
My name is Madiha, and I'm from Pakistan. And Mahatma Gandhi is such a huge part of our history. He is such a big part of the independence movement that to me he was always this mystical figure, almost a mythical figure. So it's a huge privilege for me to be here today, and I'm very grateful for all of you for making this happen. So I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you can tell us about him that you were privy to as his grandson, as a child growing up alongside, and some things that came alive only in a family setting that the rest of us wouldn't be privy to?
Family secrets, Roger.
He was very, very affectionate. You know that he tried something that was impossible for any human being to do. He tried to love all the Indian people the way he loved his own children. But it was a very sincere effort on his part. By the way, I must add, family first was not his motto. Family first was not his motto. It may have been maybe it should have been his motto. His eldest son rebelled against him. Other sons also found it difficult. My father was the youngest of the 4 sons, and he was very close to his father. Maybe he got slightly better treatment than the others. But what the world does not know is how much he loved his grandchildren and how much his grandchildren loved him. So he was, yes, he had hard demands on his children and even on his grandchildren, but we felt his love. So he was personally a very loving human being who, in order to love all the children of India, including those who are in Pakistan or Bangladesh, as his own children, therefore was harsher on his own children, maybe in consequence, or at least he had less time for them. But he did have very warm love for his wife, for his 4 sons. Sadly, he had no daughters. But his grandchildren and great-grandchildren are there in many parts of the world. Many are in the United States, and some of them are doing wonderful work. But I think the grandchildren of all the freedom fighters of Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, many of them are in the United States. Let us work together.
Harry? Up here.
Hi, Mr. Gandhi. My name is Vikramjit Singh Gill. I'm a psychiatrist, by the way. And I was told by your friend, Dr. Atamjit, to make sure that I attend this. He's in India right now. This is my friend. We came from long, far away. His name is also Mandeep Singh Gill, so he's a nephrologist. Anyway, so my question is about, I mean, we are a little bit late, quite a bit late for this whole meeting. I'm sorry about that. So we missed a lot of your talk. About the role, how can religion and democracy coexist in coming years? I fundamentally believe that religion at its heart is undemocratic institution. And if you see the graph of religion and democracy, they are exactly opposite. The rise of democracy and rise and the fall of religion, as we are seeing in this century and in coming years, is quite astonishing. They're like, I mean, and not only that, I mean, if you like, I mean, talking about Indian subcontinent, I mean, if you see the west of New Delhi, the only democracy you see is maybe not even Turkey. I mean, it's in Europe. The whole of Middle East and this whole area, there's no democracy at all. They're fundamentally very religious. And same way, I mean, I believe that, I mean, on the east side as well, I mean, like you see Indonesia, which is an Islamic country, I mean, but it's quite religious, but still democratic at its heart. There's exception. But I don't see that they can coexist, religion and democracy, in coming day and age. Well, fundamentally, I mean, religion feeds on fear. It fear of unknown and some unknown advantages. If you just don't question me, you just blindly agree with me and blindly follow me, which is totally against the democracy. And I don't think so they will ever be able to coexist. What is your perspective on this?
Well, thank you for a very important question. Namely, that in his view and the view of many people, many religiously controlled nations, whether the religion is pushed by the government or by the community, that a lot of injustices can be seen in many places where religion seems to be so dominant. So my response is something like this. For one thing, it is not possible by law or by any other means to abolish religion. You may feel that religion is a terrible impediment, but on any realistic basis, the abolition or removal or elimination of religion is more than a utopian dream. So we can put that for the future. If any such champions who feel that they can abolish religion in the world will exist in the future, good luck to them. This generation cannot achieve it. That is one comment. The other comment I would make is there are many societies in recent generations, in my lifetime, that have abolished religion as a state. And I don't find that their societies are particularly just or happy, or have not. They also have seen violence and also have seen cruelties. So I would say that people, those of you who, for very real reasons, have a very genuine and in some ways justified dislike of religion, let us agree, and those on the religious side who may not have that dislike, we agree that there is something called the human conscience, or say in the Hindustani word, insaniyat, which is something like humanity. Let us agree on insaniyat, on humanity. And on that basis, let us try to build our societies. Because we need friends from the religious world. The religious world needs friends from those who, with very good reasons, are sick and tired of religion. But thank you very much for coming and for sharing your thoughts. So, look, my belief on that, what does it matter? I mean, do you think my belief will make any difference to the world? No. Look, do I believe in the Almighty? Yes. Do I believe in the human conscience? Yes. Let's leave it at that.
Thank you very much. I want to leave plenty of time for the mixer. I'm sorry, I know you all still have a lot of questions, but I promise you'll have a chance to ask that, and in a very interpersonal way, in just a few moments. Margaret, I want to pass it over to you to conclude the session, but thank you all for your lovely questions.
Thank you, Faisal. Well, there's no question we live in an extraordinary time right now, and it is confusing. Even those of us who want very much to be acting, taking part in something that makes a difference, it's not easy to know how to do that. So we're going to have many more conversations like that, like the one we've had tonight, to seek out others with whom we can find inspiration and solidarity. So thank you, Rajmohan, for giving us the chance to have this conversation, and I just wonder if there's any parting thought you'd like to give us. You said enough. Well, thank you.